So what to do if you've been contacted by Fredrickson International debt collectors, also known as Fredpay. Hi, I'm Scott from Money Nerd, and it's my mission to arm you with knowledge so you can take back control of your finances. Today we're taking a look at the things you can do if you've been contacted by Fredrickson International debt collectors, also known as Fredpay. We're getting all of this information straight from my article on moneynerd.co.uk, which I'll also link in the description below. Just to be clear, I don't give financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just making sure you have access to the information that you need so you can make an informed decision. You've probably received a letter from Fredpay or Fredrickson International, or even had them knocking at your door. When I had debt collectors chasing me back in 2010, it caused me a lot of stress and anxiety, and to be honest, plenty of sleepless nights. But since then, I've worked in the credit card industry for over 10 years, and I'm happy to say that I've been able to use the information contained in this video to become debt-free. So today, I'd like to answer 5 frequently asked questions, like are Fredrickson International even legitimate? How to reduce your repayment amounts? How to stop Fredrickson International from contacting you? What happens if you ignore them? And what they're not allowed to do when they're collecting your debts. So, question number 1, are Fredrickson International or Fredpay even legitimate? Well, if you've received a letter from them in the post, this is probably your first question. Even if you don't recognise the company name, it might be that they've purchased your debt or they're a debt collector collecting on behalf of another company. I can confirm that Fredrickson International is a UK registered company, and whilst there are a bunch of scams out there when it comes to debt collectors, I'm afraid this is unlikely to be a scam. However, you should never pay unless you're certain that the debt is yours. You're well within your rights to ask Fredrickson International to provide proof that the debt is yours, and I have a free letter template that you can use that to confirm that the debt is yours and to confirm exactly how much you owe. It's totally free, and I'll link that in the description below. Okay, question number 2. What happens if you ignore Fredrickson International? Well, if you ignore debt collectors, your problem could escalate and become very serious. Fredpay does have the right to take court action against you, and if you were to ignore court letters, you could end up with a county court judgment. This can have a major impact on your credit score and your chances of borrowing money in the future. If you do get a CCJ and you still don't pay, this could ultimately result in bailiffs coming to your home to take your valuable items or even your car. There's a big difference between having a debt collector like Fredrickson International chasing you and having bailiffs come to your home. So I can't urge you enough that now's the time to take action on your debts while there's still options available to you. So please don't ignore Fredrickson International, and we'll get to what you should do later in this video. Question number 3. What are the rules that Fredpay need to follow? Well, despite being legally appointed to collect your debt, there's several things that Fredpay can't do when it comes to collecting your debts. Knowing what Fredrickson International can and can't do will make you feel a lot more comfortable and confident when dealing with them. So here's the things they're legally not allowed to do. They're not allowed to visit your place of work unless you give them specific permission to do so. Before this rule was in place, some debt collectors would show up while you're working and try and make things awkward for you as a way of pressuring you into paying. And on a similar note, they're not allowed to speak to neighbours, friends or family about your debt. Again, this is to stop them sort of trying to embarrass you or shame you into paying your debt. Fredrickson International can't contact you or visit your home at unreasonable times of the day. For phone calls, most people would agree that calls before 8 AM are too early and calls after 9 PM are too late. But your circumstances might be different, for example if you work night shifts. If you can't take calls during certain times, then tell them. They should be able to keep a record of this and avoid calling you during those times. By the way, for home visits, the regulations say that debt collectors need to clearly explain the purpose and the intended outcome of the proposed visit, and they need to give you adequate notice of the date and the likely time of the visit. You're well within your rights to complain if they keep calling you or visiting your homes at times that they told you to avoid. Next, it's also good to know that they're not allowed to act in a threatening or intimidating way. Also, they should never pressurise you into paying larger instalments than you can afford or hitting payment deadlines that are impossible. The regulations also say that they're not allowed to pressure you into selling your home or to take out credit to pay your debts. Also, it's good to know that debt collectors can't pretend to be bailiffs or enforcement agents. Unlike bailiffs, debt collectors can't force their way into your house and they can't refuse to leave if you ask them to. And they're certainly not allowed to take any of your belongings or clamp your car. Question number 4. How long can you be chased for debt? Well, under the Limitation Act of 1980, a creditor has 6 years to chase most unsecured unpaid debts, or 12 years for some mortgage debts. This limitation period starts from the time of your last payment or when you last acknowledged the debt. Ultimately, debt collectors can't enforce their debts through the courts after 6 years, but if you've already been taken to court and have a CCJ registered against you, unfortunately there's no end date for how long you can be chased. Question number 5. How do you pay less and come to an agreement with Fredrickson International? Well, there's a number of ways you might be able to reduce the amount you pay. If Fredrickson International are adding interest and charges to your debt, you could ask them to freeze them to help you get back on track and clear your debts quicker. Debt collectors are more likely to stop or reduce interest and charges if you can prove that you're in financial difficulties. You could put together a budget showing your income and essential living costs so you can clearly demonstrate that you're in financial difficulties. You can also use that same budget to negotiate reduced payments. Again, for this you'll need to show why you can't afford higher repayments, so make sure you're clearly showing your income and essential living costs so you can clearly demonstrate what you can afford. Sometimes debt collectors will only agree to reduce payments for a short period of time, and at the end of this period they'll want an update on your situation. Other times they'll agree to much longer repayment periods. All of this will totally depend on the nature of your debt and your individual circumstances. If you have the cash, you could make a full and final settlement offer. This is where you ask them if they'll accept a lump sum instead of the full balance that you owe, and in return for that lump sum, some debt collectors will agree to write off the remainder of the debt. These are not the only options available in the UK when it comes to your debt. There's actually a bunch more. There's some free debt solutions and there's some paid debt solutions. Each of them have their pros and cons. If you want to hear more about some of those solutions and potentially write off some of your debt, then you can fill out a short form which I'll link in the description below. It's just 5 simple questions, it takes less than 30 seconds to do, so I'll link that in the description and you can go and do that now.